The Great Duck Dog. Welcome to the channel that gives you your digging fix when you can't go out to dig. As promised, we are going to begin our series on some of the bloodlines and individual terriers that are found in America. Each video will be our straightforward knowledge, understanding, and truth about the dog as we know it. Some things may not make everyone happy. But when you shoot it straight about dogs, that's the way it works. Bottom line is, not many dogs are as great as some make them out to be, while some other dogs are slept on. Either way, without further ado, we are excited to start the first in our series. This video is going to speak about a dog by the name of Fox's Duck, owned by Mr. Gill, a great man that has experienced just about everything you can when it comes to terriers. Like us, he's been overseas digging them in their native lands, which is not something many Americans can say. Like us, Mr. Gill is a man that will tell you his opinion, be it favored or not. He's always been known to be honest about the dogs, and willing to back up anything he said with receipts. Fox's Duck was bred by Randy Fox, who is a long-time breeder of game dogs. If you are familiar with game dogs in the area that Mr. Gill lives in, then you are familiar with Mr. Fox's history with the game dogs. There are many rejects from the game dog community in the terriers, but unlike many in these terriers that claim to have once been a part of the game dog community, Mr. Fox has a good track record of success. Some other terrier men even show off their show ribbon for old family red-nosed dogs. With amount of show ribbon shown, you can tell they did not have game-bred bulldogs. You won't find a single family of fast-lane bulldogs that can show you 15+ ribbons, one in the show ring. Maybe some offset of the family, but not the actual family. But back to Fox's Duck. Duck was born on April 2, 2007. He was a black smooth coat dog. He was off of Fox's Mickey. Mickey was out of French Creek's Valley, Devon, and out of French Creek Valley, Stitch. Devon was off of Little Bill and out of Grafter, making Devon a pure Booth dog going back to the Great Booth's Tonic and Tipperary Tim. Stitch, Devon's dam, was off of the Great Booth's Milo, who was an import from Ireland that made a big impact on the American terriers when the Booth dogs hit the States. In fact, Milo was a litter mate brother to the Red Rocket dog. But Milo was valued more because he was a smaller dog that was considered a pure digging terrier in terms of his drive and abilities. Stitch was out of a bitch named Kara, and Kara was a daughter of a dog named River and out of a bitch named Ginger Mane. River was off of two Booth dogs, and the Ginger Mane bitch was off of Mason's Otis and out of Bobbitt's Ginger. This makes Duck a half old school Booth dog. Mind you, Booth input on the dog himself is several generations back in the pedigree, but nonetheless Duck is greatly influenced by Mr. Booth's efforts in the breed. Duck was out of Fox's Red Rose, who was off of Field's Half Pint, who was off of Hammond's Sammy Son and out of Hammond's Natasha. Natasha was off of an imported Gould male named Gould's Boris. Red Rose was out of Fox's Dolly Digger, who was off of Hammond's More Troubles and out of Hammond's Nippy Shay. This makes Duck as 50% Hammond's dog. So Duck is a 50-50 cross that is the result of two respected game dog men's efforts in the Patterdale Terrier breed. In fact, back then Mr. Gill purchased Duck as a pup, as was because of the Gould and Booth blood present in Duck. But Mr. Gill always knew of Gary Hammonds, though the game dogs. In our experience, if you are into harder dogs, Hammond's blood is one that you have to be selective of where you get it from. Obviously, Duck shows and proves that the blood has some outstanding individuals if you cross it right and get it from the right source. However, if you do not, we notice the trait that you will likely see is some interest in locating, but many of them are not the hardest of terriers, and that is putting it nicely. And this is why these videos are being made, to tell the truth of some of the shortcomings due to American breeding the breed, as well as give credit to great dogs like Duck. That being said, Booth dogs were always known to be very hard dogs. And again, Duck was no less than 50% Booth blood. Combine this with the fact that Duck's breeder was none other than the great Randy Fox, and boom, you get a great dog like Duck. During Duck's career as a hunter, he was worked on beaver, coon, and wild hogs. According to Mr. Gill, Duck won hard dog competition at 11 months of age at a terrier show and has never made a sound, even though Mr. Gill had him in way over his head since the young age of just 7 months. Mr. Gill also bought a littermate female to Duck when he purchased Duck from Mr. Fox as well. She also made an outstanding game dog. Mr. Gill also mentioned having to use a remote collar when he started Duck, as Duck was known to have a very wide casting pattern. A particular offspring from Duck that was stood out in Mr. Gill's mind was a male named Rex. Rex was a black and tan dog that was out of a bitch that came from Dave Roberts, a well-known terrier man in Ireland. Rex also had a brother that was a crazy terrier and hard worker. Most of Duck's breedings were to Schwab, Booth, and Dave Roberts females. Mr. Gill is one of the few individuals that we recommend if someone is looking for a working terrier. We recommend him because he knows and has first-hand experience like ourselves with the terriers in their homelands doing what they were bred to do. He hunts his dogs, like us he travels to hunt his dogs, and has a wealth of knowledge about digging to terriers. We've always heard about how amazing the Duck dog was through men like Mr. Ashlock and others. We hope that Duck's name continues to live on through his offspring. If bred back to the proper lines, we see no reason he won't produce well. Until next time, just remember it's 3XO. The kennel many love to hate on, but home to some great workers nonetheless. We will see you guys at the next dig.